baby, listen to me speak, yeah. No matter what, just say the word. Pop, Perswayable. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy. I'm trying to look handsome for you all. I'm not doing too good of a job, but I'm trying. That's all that counts, right? So I want to let you all know that for the next month, my videos are going to be reduced in quantity for the most part. I'm really busy trying to study for my licensure boards. For those who don't know, I have 2 bachelor degrees in psychology and sociology from the University of Rhode Island. I was also getting a 3rd degree in biology, but I decided to go to graduate school. I got my master's degree in occupational therapy. And so now, in order to become a practitioner in occupational therapy, you need to pass your national licensure exams. So in order for me, once again, to be a clinician and a practitioner, I need to pass that. So I'm going to be studying like 6 hours, 8 hours a day, so I'm not going to have as much time to do this stuff. However, hopefully once I'm done and I pass, I'll be back to my normal grind and as we take over the world. For those who don't know, occupational therapy, it's a really awesome field. We help rehabilitate people and really get you to be functioning again. Take your meaningful and purposeful occupations, those with spinal cord injuries, traumatic brain injuries, all the way from children to developmental disabilities or developmental delays. We kind of do everything. We're all over the place. One minute we could be trying to get you back into the workforce. The next minute we're trying to help you regain motor function, to regain your ability to do things such as your ability to dress yourself and that sort of stuff. So really, really cool field. All right, I got 10 questions that I need to answer. I think maybe 11. I think I put a funny one in there. And yeah, so hope you guys enjoy the video. Let's get right to the questions. I might have to clear my throat a little bit. I got a little frog in there. So, Elegant Monkey Man, is it acceptable to break the walls on church? So this is a very good question. So for those who don't know or don't remember, on the church, on the left side of the map, it's technically the left side of the map is where you can have the broken walls, right? Typically, I don't break the walls. Now, you have the upper side of that map, which is close to the small hut. And then you have the lower side, which is kind of to the side of the little garden, if you will, or some people call it the cemetery, right? So sometimes, in rare circumstances, I'll break the walls in the lower corner because you can kind of infinite loop that if they don't have confined space. But on the upper tier, usually I actually don't take the walls down. And the reason being so is that the walls are actually in your favor. When a lot of beginners, rather when Red Church first started and it was first appeared in Northern America, a lot of us would take time to break the walls. There's a few problems with this. One, you're wasting time. You need to decode, right? But the second problem with this is that if you break the walls, you're actually giving the hunter some vision, right? Whereas if the hunter comes towards me, because the walls are over there, you can run and loop through the walls a few times, 1 or 2 times, and then work your way either down or to the side. Typically, you want to work your way down. And if you have the walls broken, then they're going to be able to see you easier. Most of the time when I play Hunter, the only thing that I have to rely on is actually your footprints that you leave on the ground. Sometimes we'll try to predict your movement. But if you're looking behind you, while you're running, you can tell by my red flashlight where I'm going. And you can really kite the heck out of me there. So using those walls is one of your biggest advantages. Breaking those walls is not good because it's easier for me to see where you're going. And it's easier for me to predict your movement. So using the walls, especially early game, is the best thing you can do. Now, the argument is, what about late game? Especially with a clown that has charge. Well, that kind of comes up to your own personal decision. Sometimes, it's permissible to break the walls, but I can tell you definitively, early game, I never break the walls. Just because there's no reason to ping him unnecessarily, and you need to decode, you need to do your job. And again, you can use the walls to your advantage, and they're not going to be able to see you. And that's usually my version of how to play. Some people play differently. I don't like to waste time, especially early game when you have all those pallets over there. All right, Shiro, Hunter or Survivor? Which one do I like playing more? I absolutely like playing Survivor more. I've almost perfected my craft. I was able to climb to the top of the leaderboards. The thing with Hunter is that in top tiers, they're significantly disadvantaged to the point where sometimes it's not even fun. I can kill you in the first minute of the match and get you on the rocket chair. Next thing I know, we're down to 2 ciphers. That's not really enjoyable for me, because even when I have a good game against top tier survivors, you're still going to lose. The best way to play Hunter is with an emulator. That's what a lot of the top Chinese players do. They use emulators, and including some of the top US players for Hunters, they use emulators. I don't want to have to use an emulator to play a mobile device. Computer users should be stuck playing computer users. Mobile users should be stuck playing mobile users, all right? They're different markets. So, but on the contrary, the reason why some hunters use their emulators is because they're so significantly disadvantaged. So using an emulator is their only real competitive advantage. The only way that they can kind of even the odds a little bit and make it very difficult for survivors to kite. So I see both sides of the argument. I've definitely become a little bit more relaxed with the whole emulator use. So, but when the PC version is announced, I hope emulator users stick to the PC version, or then you're just a cheater. So right now, you get a pass. And by the way, development team doesn't care if you're using emulators right now. Somebody asked about boot camp. All right, so boot camp is eventually going to happen. I don't have a lot of time. I just like to play with people. And more importantly, because the Twitch, we have over 1,000 follows now on Twitch, and we are gaining popularity. I don't want new users to come in and just see me yelling at people. They're going to be like, who the hell is this wise guy, right? So we are going to do boot camp, but it's not my favorite thing to do, only because I actually don't like yelling at people. You know, I have no problem telling you, hey, you need to last longer. You need to, wherever you were, I want you to think, how could you have changed your route? Or, hey, I saw you go the wrong route. That was bad. You can't do that. That's different, right? That's constructive criticism. People expect that when they play with me. That's why they play with me. But boot camp is about yelling at you, getting mad at you, rah, 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 right? And even though it's comical, I need to make sure that I have that. I have like an image in my feed so people know, hey, by the way, satire mode activated, don't think I'm actually like this. And that's important for me because I am going to be a practicing OT clinician. I have certain ethics that I need to abide by. So I need to make sure that, you know, it's very comical, but it's put there in for... So we'll do it eventually, just not right now. But we'll get to it. I promise you it's on the list. So, Zuka, I think your name is Zuka or Kuka, asked about, am I going to come out with a dancer analysis and guide? Of course I'm going to come out with a dancer and analysis and guide. You got Grizzly, who lets you know about all of the new updates and all of that stuff. He shows you gameplay, all of that sort of stuff. My field is more so taking it and saying, okay, this is what we got here. How can we use it? That's my specialty because I have the luxury of having, you know, so much experience playing the game since day one, having good, valuable feedback on the Chinese servers, and more so, I'm seeing the reality of things. And let me tell you something, when I come out with those tier lists, man, it's funny. There's some people get so angry at me, they get so mad, they're in my inbox. I had one, yeah, okay, we're not even going to talk about that. So Rams kind of asked this question, I kind of adapted, and he essentially says, how do you play forward? But he was asking, why is forward tier C? Forward's actually tier B, because he's better on the computer. I would argue that forward is actually A tier if you can use him on the computer and use him appropriately. The idea, I'm going to tell you guys how to use forward. I actually did this in my other video, but I'm going to say this again. You need to decode right away. I even put this in Grizzly's video. You need to decode right away. All right, if you think that you need to run around trying to get the hunter's attention, you already don't know enough in how to play forward. That's not how you play forward, ever. You're wasting time. You need to decode right away. And there's a few reasons, actually. If you decode and the machine starts to wiggle, the hunter actually might come to you because now he sees that a machine is wiggling. Typically, if I'm a hunter, and especially Joker, sometimes Joker takes a little bit to get all of his attachments. And then he starts looking around, and sometimes he goes to a machine that's not wiggling as fast because he knows that that machine's almost done. So sometimes he'll make the conservative approach and go after you. If it's a Geishua teleport, then it's different, right? She's going to go after the machine that wiggles the fastest. The point is you don't know who you're facing every match. Your point is to decode right away. When somebody's injured one time, that's when you get off the machine and you reposition yourself. That is so you harass. If you have a coordinator on your team and you're a harasser as a forward player, right? There's matches where I can make you drop the player 3 times. That means that when that person went down, they would have already been almost dead on the rocket chair. But instead, I made sure that that person hasn't even been on the rocket chair once. You can stun, you can do a rescue one time. After that, that's when you kind of want the coordinator to come into play because the coordinator will have the additional tide turner and the flare gun, and you don't want to keep rapidly saving. You'll get your person killed to begin with. But a competent forward will harass the heck out of you. And then a lot of hunters, to counter good forwards, they'll use excitement. But if they're using excitement, that means they don't have blink or patrol or anything in between or teleport, which means it's easier to kite them. So you have the fear factor as well as forward. Forward is definitely a top tier character. Whether you like to admit that or not is up to you, but the objective facts of what we see the top 2 Chinese players using, I like to use forward as well as the top player. It's just the objective facts is that he is useful. You just need to use him. We're not going to judge him based on how many bad people there are using him. That's irrelevant to his threshold. All right. What happens if all 8 cowboys lasso each other? That's what we call Brokeback Mountain. No, I'm just kidding. That was by resentment. So, somebody asked, Sprinter. I think it's Sprinter. He asked, if you put the patroller on the perfume and she activates perfume, will it go away? It won't go away. Same thing with a magician using the illusion. So there's really no way to counter that unless you use a pallet, of course, and prevent it from getting to you. All right, so Zane ONG. So Zane ONG asked a long question, and he essentially asked about the validity of a tactic, and what that tactic is that you play Lucky Guy. And what Lucky Guy does is he opens up the chest and he wishes for items that other teammates use. For instance, a forward user using football, you get an additional football for him, or a coordinator, you get an additional flare gun, mechanic, you get an additional remote. And he's asking, is this a legitimate strategy? And the problem with that is probably not. Can you make it work? Sure. I actually played with Fleg, and he did it perfectly. It was great. He got me another football, and I kept harassing him. But the point is that when you're in legendary rank, and there's 4 of you, it's very hard for you to communicate that. It's very hard for you to communicate to your other players that you have no communication with. Hey, by the way, I have a new item for you. If you could communicate with all 5 people, sure, then maybe it is a legitimate tactic and it can be used. One of the tactics would be, hey, go into the middle of church. I have another football for you, because I was running out. You know, it is a strategy. It's just it's not really used. You're better off having a mechanic on your team, a forward there. This is one of the problems when we talk about strategies, where everybody's like, oh, I think that strategy works. And it's like, sure, maybe that strategy can work, but it doesn't mean it's the best strategy. Just because it is a strategy doesn't mean it's a good strategy or the best strategy, which means you should probably choose the better characters that provide you the optimal success at winning. For instance, choosing a mechanic because of the 3% buff to everybody's decode speed. That's 10 seconds faster. Every second counts. Not to mention as well her puppet. Not to mention the forward's harassment. Not to mention the perfumer's ability to take 5 hits in the beginning of the game before going down once. That's infuriating for a hunter. Not to mention the coordinator's ability to use Tide Turn, and we're about to get into that, how to use coordinator in a second. So, is it a strategy? Of course it is. Open up items and help your team, but it's unrealistic. There's better strategies. All right. The boss asked, how do you counter a fully fed feaster when somebody's on the rocket chair? There's only one way to do this, actually. And if somebody disagrees, they're probably wrong. Or maybe I'm wrong. But I play Feaster a lot. I just played some of the top survivors. And I should have been able to kill them all, but they were able to get away with a tie. And I was fully fed. And I've also won matches this way as well. The best way to do it is that you need multiple people to save. The Feaster is the only character where you need multiple people to save. If the person has the curse mark, I'm not saying in the beginning of the match, but if the person has the curse mark, what you need to do is you actually need 2 people to go in for the rescue. One of them is going to get the curse mark on them. So the curse mark requires 4,500 presence. So for those who don't know, with the Feaster, you have to manually control tentacles until you get the curse mark. If you get the curse mark, which is your full maximal presence, he can just put a curse mark on you and all the tentacles randomly swing at you at the same time, or within your vicinity, right? And that changes up the Feaster's tactics. In the beginning of the match, he has to put a tentacle up, he has to hit you with the tentacle, and then manually hit you. He doesn't manually hit you first, because if he manually hits you first, then he can't control the tentacle because he's on cooldown. So it makes it a little bit harder for him to defend. He can still do a good job by hiding behind an object, using the tentacle and coming out and hitting the coordinator, right? But on the premise of curse mark, you're probably never going to do it. And by a good Feaster, he will always get that curse mark on you. He will have tentacles up, and they're going to hit you, and he's going to finish you off, typically speaking. Okay? Sometimes the coordinator may be able to use her flare gun, but you still got to worry about popping up tentacles in the 10-second radius. So, here's a strategy. You have 2 people going to rescue. One gets the curse mark on him, and they kind of get out. Because if they have the curse mark on him, nothing can hit them. Right? Whereas the other person, now they can go in for an easy... The hunter won't be able to do a manual tentacle hit on you, because when you to do a manual tentacle hit is the same skill as to put a curse mark on somebody. So if the hunter puts a curse mark, he's on cooldown, which means now the other person doesn't have to worry about a tentacle hit because he doesn't have the curse mark, which means the hunter can only hit him once. So with a fully fed Feaster, you need 2 people to do the rescue. One person gets the curse mark, backs off, so none of the tentacles are swinging at him. Other person gets hit by the tentacle, by the Feaster once, and then he gets the normal rescue. All right. Last question, coordinator. What do you do? Do you get hit, save, and then use gun? Okay, I see what. So this is by Cateman. So the argument is what do you do? Do you fire your flare gun, then rescue the person so he can get away, or do you get hit, use your flare gun, then rescue? And the answer is it actually matters. It depends. It depends on the circumstances. If the ideally you want to be able to rescue first, so get hit, rescue, or don't get hit, and then use your flare gun. That's theoretical. This is a long answer. Because if you can rescue first and then use your flare gun, you're really allowing maximum time for your teammate to get away. You got to be careful though, because sometimes when you use your flare gun, they're going to get hit anyway. So here, let's first go down to how you're supposed to save. How you're supposed to save is by when somebody gets on the chair, you need to save them before that halfway mark. If you wait, if you start dab on and joking around and messing around and being an idiot and you're trying to fake out the hunter and your teammates health on the chair goes more than halfway, that means that the next time they go down, they die, right? Because they go down and then they get put on the... So you need to rescue them before the halfway mark. When you rescue them before the halfway mark, it means that when they go down and they're on the rocket chair, they're not dead yet. And it keeps going back up again, right? And you can do another save. So there's a few tactics here. Some coordinators, if they can manage to do it, who have tide turner, they only go for the tide turner save. They don't use their flare gun, and there's a reason for that. They don't use their flare gun because they know that if the person goes down in 20 seconds, two things. You're still buying time for your team to decode. That's about 1/3 of an additional cipher machine, okay? And when he goes down, it still takes about 5-10 seconds to get him on a rocket chair. That's 30 seconds. So you're really eating up the hunter's time now. Then you can go for a second rescue using your flare gun, because you know that you're going to be around the vicinity anyways. Then at that point, you may have to use the flare gun first. And if you use the flare gun first, at least you can buy somebody a little bit of time to rescue if they're near a pallet. It's going to depend on which rocket chair they're on. There's a few strategies, and it's always different. Like I said, if you get hit super far away from the rocket chair, you may actually have to use your flare gun and run to the rocket chair. You screwed up your rescue, but what are you gonna do? You gotta adapt. You're gonna die. You don't want to die, right? But trying to do the rescue. Now two of you are down. It screws the team over. So ideal circumstances, you want to eat. It's not always about saving that person. It's about eating as much time and trying to save the person. So if you can save that person once using tide turner and not use your flare gun, and that wastes more time, and then they get back on the rocket chair, then you use your flare gun, then they have a little bit of time to compensate for no tide turner. That's the ideal circumstance. You just wasted so much time. You wasted a ridiculous amount of time. That's over a minute. Usually over a minute of time, or 45 seconds. That's a ridiculous amount of time. But it depends. Like I said, it depends on how close. If they go halfway, if that meter's halfway, and you know that if they go down one more time they die, yeah, you use tide turner and your flare gun, because now that person needs to survive and you need to just invest everything in them right away. So I hope I was able to answer that question. That's a very complicated question, way too many circumstances, but at least you have the foundation knowledge to really kind of figure out what you need to do, right? So in the science field, in the medical field, we learn the foundations of things, right? Especially in psychology, we learn different frames of reference. But then when it comes to an individual patient, we use research, and we use research and we use our own clinical reasoning to come up with the best solution. So you learn the foundation, you look at the research, you use personal experience, and you help your patient. That's called the scientific process in clinical reasoning, right? You need to do the same thing as a player. I'm giving you the foundational knowledge. You need to practice. You need to play. You need to build that awareness to, okay, what do I need to do in this circumstance? And then you curtail your tactic on each individual map, in each individual game, on each individual rocket chair, based on all three of those. Okay? Hope I was able to answer your question, guys. Once again, the videos are not going to be... they're probably not going to happen every day. I got to study for my practitioner boards. I hope to catch you on Twitch. Hope to catch you guys on Discord. I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one. Cheers.